end of the day, it is what it is.
Defeat can be tough for any MMA fighter, particularly mentally as the seeds of doubt begin to be sown regarding your abilities. So you can imagine the strength needed to overcome a loss in your very first fight. This is a list of fighters who fell at the first hurdle in MMA, only to bounce back and become successful stars of the sport. Welcome to INC, and these are 5 MMA legends who lost their debut. Kazushi Sakuraba is one of Japanese MMA's all-time pioneers, a catch wrestling master whose wins over the Gracie family have seen him enter MMA folklore. It's all a far cry from 1996, when Sakuraba made his MMA debut against Kimo Leopoldo at the Shoot Boxing Cup in Japan. Sakuraba held his own with the UFC alumni before Kimo's 60-pound weight advantage ultimately proved too much, as he managed to finish a tired Sakuraba by arm triangle in the first round. Sakuraba's spell in pro wrestling have led many to consider the legitimacy of the fight, but it still remains on both men's official records to this day. For 4 years, the fight would be the only blight of Sakuraba's resume, going on an 8-fight winning streak which culminated in a 90-minute epic against Royce Gracie at Pride 2000. While not formally retired, Sakuraba hasn't fought in MMA since 2015, his career standing at 27 wins, 16 losses and a place in the UFC Hall of Fame in 2017. Defeat isn't a word commonly associated with Cris Cyborg. The Brazilian's been one of the dominant forces in MMA for over a decade, which makes his sole MMA loss back in 2005 all the more shocking. Back then, Cyborg was a brash 20-year-old competing in national level handball, when she was convinced to take up martial arts by Shootbox Academy trainer Rudimar Federigo. After just 3 months of training, Cyborg made her MMA debut against Erika Paez at Showfight 2 in Curitiba. Cyborg, the pixel on the left, started the fight strongly, avoiding Paez's takedown attempts before landing vicious kicks on a downed opponent. Cyborg's inexperience would soon come to the fore, getting caught in a knee bar and being forced to submit just over a minute into the fight. Cyborg has spoken out about the fight, describing it as the most humbling moment of her career, one she vowed never to repeat as long as she continued in the sport. At the time of recording, it's a vow that remains intact, as hard work and a few pounds of steroids saw Cyborg tear for the women's featherweight division, claiming titles in Invicta, Strikeforce, and finally the UFC with a win over Tonya Evinger at UFC 214.
Oh, several knees now! That's it. This could do it! That's it. Cris Cyborg finally can add UFC champion to the ledger!
The year is 1999, and a young rookie named Andrei Arlovski is preparing for his MMA debut in St. Petersburg, Russia. A former Sambo prospect, Arlovski began exploring MMA while training for the Minsk police force, and taking on fellow newcomer Vyacheslav Datsek at MFC World Championship. Both men's inexperience quickly proved evident, showing very little in the ground game, with Datsek using every means possible in a bid to win the fight. Despite shortcomings, Arlovski appeared to have the upper hand over his Ukrainian opponent, before exposing a side to his game that would quickly prove his trademark: a glass jaw.
Whoa! If Arlovski gets up from this, it'll be days of Count Dracula rising from the coffin.
Arlovski was down, but certainly not out, winning 8 of his next 10 fights and capturing the UFC heavyweight title in 2005. Datsek meanwhile would have his own colourful career, including Slavic paganism, getting extradited to Norway, and a vigilante raid on brothels. Not that there was any clue at the time. Forrest Griffin's MMA career has been trademarked by hard work and overcoming adversity, traits which became quickly evident in his very first MMA fight back in 2001. After a prolific career as an amateur, Griffin was thrown into the deep end for his pro debut, when he took on UFC alumni Dan Severn and New Blood conflict in Augusta, Georgia. With a gulf of experience between them, Severn dominated proceedings, controlling a largely dull fight on the ground, but being unable to finish the valiant Griffin.
I'll tell you what, though, Forrest is, to me, is the clown prince. He's hilarious. I had an opportunity to sit around, talk with him, joke with him. He says he's not even good enough to get nervous about fights. Says he goes in, he goes for broke, because he don't know no better.
Forrest would lose the fight by unanimous decision, but the skills learned in the fight would help shape his career, as wins over Jeff Monson and Chael Sonnen led him to receive a call-up for the first season of The Ultimate Fighter, and helping to kickstart the career of one of the UFC's most popular figures. Brazil is such a hotbed for MMA talent, there's no such thing as an easy first fight, and no fighter showcased that better than former bantamweight champion Renan Barão. After training boxing with his father, Barão was introduced to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu at the age of 14, before pursuing MMA full-time at Rio's Nova União setup. After turning pro in 2005, Barão made his MMA debut in April, where he took on Juan Paulo Rodriguez at Heat Fighting Championships. Barão was outclassed for the majority of the fight, failing to lure the veteran to his guard and being on the receiving end of heavy shots when the Jiu-Jitsu brown belt finally took the bait. The result was a foregone conclusion, as Barão lost a one-sided contest by unanimous decision. For over 9 years, the loss would be the only one of Barão's career, the Brazilian amassing a 32-fight winning streak that saw him claim the UFC bantamweight title in 2013. Rodriguez meanwhile would enjoy success in regional promotions, beating Ultimate Fighter winner Ronnie Jason on his way to a 36-17 record. And now time for a few honourable mentions. Kickboxing champion Mark Hunt learned knockout power needs nothing if you get taken to the ground. Travis Fulton lost his first fight, then proceeded to win over 200 in response. And a young Misha Tate made a pro debut at Bulldog Fighting Championships. Tate won a first fight against Strikeforce veteran Jan Finney, before getting a brutal wake-up at the hands of Caitlin Young.
Gigantic head kick knocks Tate to the ground, and another one buckles under the canvas.
This is the INC, and thank you for watching.